A long time ago, Aristotle said these very profound words, and they remain as important today as they have always been. Why? Because metaphor is one of the most powerful tools we have for understanding and participating in our world. It makes complex concepts clear and brings theoretical ideas to life, but they also shape us, influence our thoughts, and alter our behaviors. Let's look at time as an example. The Mayan culture saw it as cyclical, refreshing, and renewing. In Western culture, we see it as linear, a commodity. We waste it, we spend it, and as such, our lives get faster and faster as we squeeze as much as we can out of this scarce commodity. So what metaphors do we live by in our industry? Or as James Hollis asks, what fiction is our truth? Look at how teachers are often perceived. Do you see yourself in any of these metaphors? Do your students? Are we aware of how our students perceive us? And does this influence our dynamic in the classroom? And what about our students? Is the way you see your students the way they see themselves? Research suggests that in fact they do not. They don't see themselves as clients or plants or containers. And what impact does this inconsistency in metaphor between teacher and student have on that dynamic we try to create in our classrooms? So, although we agree metaphor is all around us and influencing us and adds a huge dimension of experience, the scary thing is they are largely unconscious. We use them automatically without thinking and very often simply borrow them from society, our peers, our environment, and their impact can disempower us. In the words of Swiss psychologist Carl Jung, what remains unconscious owns us. So this is an effort on my part to make the unconscious conscious. I'd like to share with you my metaphorical journey of teaching and as such uncovering some of the metaphors that have influenced me in my teaching. Once upon a time, there was a princess who lived on a beautiful island. She loved her home, but she was bored. Her island was wrapped in clouds. She could vaguely see other islands out there, but she couldn't experience them. So one day, she decided to leave. She got a job in a faraway village and said goodbye to all her friends and family. When she got to this new island, she realized she had been put in charge of knowledge, a director of knowledge, in fact. And although she was flattered and pleased, she was also terrified and had no idea what to do. So she went to the village wizard and asked for help. The wizard asked her to think of her experiences and to draw an object that might help her. She thought of her past teachers, and the image of a jug and a fountain came to mind. She quickly drew the images for the wizard, who promptly turned her into a jug. She was thrilled. She grew tall and suddenly felt purposeful. Everything made sense, and she spent her evenings filling herself up and her days pouring herself out. After a while, however, she started looking more closely at her students. They didn't seem to be enjoying themselves as much as she thought they would, and she realized they had all turned into mugs. She towered over them and felt a distance she couldn't put her finger on. She felt threatened when she met one that already seemed quite full, and became dismayed at how many seemed to have secret spouts that siphoned off what she had just tried to pour in. She needed more help, so she went to another wizard, an Irish one named Yates. She explained that she was fighting a losing battle and some of her best days had been when she'd forgot she was a jug. On these days, the students would pour their own information into each other's mugs, and everyone seemed to glow a little bit. "Aha!" said the wizard. "I know just what to do." And with a snap of his fingers, he turned her into a box of matches. Again, she was thrilled. She felt spontaneous and daring, and couldn't wait to set her mugs on fire. Her enthusiasm was infectious, and some of her mugs burst into flames straight away. Yet again, however, disappointment was following swiftly behind her. Many of her mugs didn't want to catch fire, and although they came to appreciate her, they missed her jug. The other problem was that the fires that were created seemed to burn themselves out when she wasn't around. They burned brightly, but once they burned their fuel, there was nothing left to burn. Eventually, she began to notice something beyond the flames, something that seemed equally important to the fire, but was getting ignored. Excitedly, she ran off to find Karl, the Swiss wizard. She explained her situation carefully, and he listened attentively. He asked her what she wanted him to do. She chose her words carefully, took a deep breath, and asked to be turned into a sundial. a special one without a gnome on. What's a gnome on? Asked the wizard, who was very clever, but not up on the Lexus of sundials. The stick thing on the face of the dial, the thing that casts the shadow. But sundials don't work without their gnome on, explained the wizard. Ah, the princess explained. My students will be the gnomon on my sundial. My classes will shine on their knowledge, and the shadows they cast will point me clearly to both what they do know and what they don't know. You see, the gaps in their shadows will show me where the teaching is really needed. And if I can get my students to see their shadows, the most mystical and powerful of all learning potions can be created. There's a potion that helps people learn? Asked the wizard. Yes, said the princess. It's a very special potion that can be tricky to create. It's called the need to know. And there's two types. Type 1 is the one that teacher makes, and type 2 is the one that the teacher helps the students make for themselves. Ah, I understand, said the wizard. And he did as the princess asked, and turned her into a sundial. And she lived happily ever after, basking in the sun, helping her students cast their shadows, and creating the need to know potion. The end. So now you've heard my journey, and my effort to make my metaphors conscious. What about you? What fiction is your truth? What are your metaphors? And most importantly, do you own them? Or do they own you?